The Honest Money podcast is brought to you by Prescient Investment Management. We consider everything to give you the advantage. It's the future of investing. Prescient Investment Management is an authorized FSP.
Hello, Honest Money team, Dominique here. I am interested in helping my son's nanny set up an account, either an RA or an ETF for retirement savings. Currently, she's in her late 40s and she doesn't have any retirement savings. I'm not too sure which route would be perhaps the simplest to administrate. Of course, RA, she would be more likely that would be maintained as savings. However, an ETF perhaps could be a smaller amount every month and also easy to access and administrate. Would love your input on that. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your question, Dominique. Contributing to retirement savings of some description for your domestic workers or the nannies of your children is it feels like a moral imperative for a lot of people, and certainly that's my view, is that we are if you employ a domestic worker, then you're an employer, and helping your employees to build up their own retirement savings feels to me like the right thing to do. It feels to me like the moral correct thing to take care of. The difficulty is that over my entire career, which is now nearly 30 years, it's probably the thing that causes the most headaches for investors. And the reason is that a lot of domestic workers are really not earning a lot of money. And that means that between them and their families, there is a desperate need for money every single day. They're not in a position financially where they can look at something over the long term and are prepared to set aside money for a 5 or 10 or 20 year period. Them being able to access a little bit more money on a monthly basis might mean the difference between school fees, clothing, rent or something. The need is usually enormous. And so a lot of the time, the desire of the employer to do something good for their employee actually causes conflict, because when that discussion starts, then the employee is saying, well, don't set aside this money and lock it away. I need that money now. Like, give me the money now. I can feed my children. And so it's a very difficult kind of conflict to manage between long-term and long-term growth and doing the right thing, and then the short-term need, and there can't be a greater need for a parent than to feed their child, or to pay for their school fees, or buy their school uniforms, or whatever it is. And so it's really not a simple kind of one shoe fits all sizes answer here. And I think, just to start there, I think if I sound hesitant, it's because I've just seen this, something which is meant to be a very positive, very good kind of intent, often cause just so much heartache and everyone feeling upset and hurt with each other. And so I think it starts with some real honest basic conversations between employers and employees. I think, to me, one of the responsibilities we have as employers, if we're working with our domestic workers and we know that their education is limited, the moral responsibility to do right by them is there, and that also includes helping them to understand how money works, how investments work, and to try and give them a base level of financial education, some financial literacy. And so I think that a little bit of kind of money conversations, every week and every month over a period of time would add a huge amount to the person you're trying to help, in addition to taking the financial steps. So I'm not saying do one or the other. I think that it's very important to do both. So what are your options? I mean, your options are in the entire investment industry. So from a unit trust or an exchange traded fund or a fixed deposit, right through to a retirement fund where you contribute to a retirement annuity on their behalf. And I think, just to talk through the benefits of both, I think the change in law around retirement annuities or retirement funds in general is quite helpful, because we now have the system called two-pot. And what that means is that a portion of the money that you contribute to a retirement fund will be accessible every year. It's not a huge amount, but it is a portion. And so, if you're working with your domestic worker and working on a kind of a financial freedom plan for them, it could be that you explain that the retirement fund, if there is 10,000 rand in there, they will not be able to access 7,000 out of the 10,000 at all until they reach 55 or older. But the 3,000 they can if they're in an emergency. And I think it's there, it's trying to explain the difference between the wants and the needs. And it's something we all should be taught, along the way. And so, just the difference between a lifestyle decision and then basic needs, and basic needs, when someone needs food or needs rent or needs school fees, that's a need. Like that's not a want. And so, differentiating between that and, a nice holiday or kind of a nice clothing item, whatever it is, those are wants. And so, having that conversation around, I'm going to set aside some money for you. It's going into this investment. Here it is. And you can see your account online on your phone. You can check it by monthly statements, by email. We can set up an email for you, because remember, you're bringing them into the modern kind of financial system where they might be operating just on a cell phone with their bank. And so taking them into the kind of broader financial services industry is kind of what you're about to do. And I think it's a very good thing to do, but it requires you to be patient and to explain very basic concepts in a way that they can understand. Remember, they might not have had the benefit of a very good schooling, and so your job here is financial literacy, then financial education, and then setting up the investments. And some of those can be done in parallel. And equally, that you might say, well, I want to put aside 1,000 rand a month for their retirement. Okay, great. Maybe you take 500 and you put that in a retirement annuity, and you put 500 into an exchange traded fund or a unit trust for them. And the difference there is that hopefully that the money doesn't get accessed in either investment, but if they reach a financial emergency at a point in time, there's at least a portion of the money in the unit trust or exchange traded fund that they can access almost immediately, within a couple of days. And the tax implications for them, if they are very low salary earners, the tax implications are minimal. So I think that that's maybe a route to follow for someone, is that you do a blend. But what I can tell you is, from the benefit of years of experience around this very topic, is it is very difficult, and you've got to be careful between treading that line of being a good employer where you provide education and not being paternalistic, where you're trying to exercise control over another adult's life and the needs and wants that they have to take care of. They're parents in their own right. They might have their own parents, their own siblings, and their own children that they need to look after, and every cent that you set aside for them might be appreciated immediately. So it is about having real conversations and making sure that both of you have an idea of what's going to happen, and then talking about the time when things go wrong. What do we do when something goes wrong in your life? Because I can't tell you what to do with your money. It becomes your money. So what is your thinking? How would you like to deal with this? But I just think be very careful to impose your values and your kind of objectives on your staff, because their reality might be much more immediate, much more dire than and opening that door to a conversation is very good, but be prepared that you might find out a lot more about your domestic worker and their position, and that it might be a lot more difficult than you know about. So I think that it's about being always, if you can approach this honestly, with good intent, with no judgment, with a blank piece of paper and with the aim to ask questions about how can I help you, as opposed to this is what I think you should do. That's the big mistake we often make in life, is that we tell people how they should be helped, rather than asking them what help they need and what would be the greatest benefit to them. And I think if you start that way, Dominique, and then follow the conversation to its conclusion, you might come up with a very good solution. I'm certainly encouraging you to do it, but I'm really suggesting you just do some homework, speak to friends and family if they've had similar experiences, to learn from what worked for them, what didn't work. But really, asking questions around how can I help you is really the baseline. I think making sure that you're not just imposing a view from where you sit, and I'm not saying you are. We don't know each other at all, but just that that's where I think things go wrong, and relationships sour, and often end up breaking what might have been a very good relationship because everyone feels they were trying to help and everyone's upset with each other. So I'm sorry I haven't given you a lot more detail than that, Dominique. I hope you managed to find a good solution between yourself and your son's nanny, and I wish you all the best, and I congratulate you for wanting to look after your employees. It's our moral obligation for those of us that can and should afford be able to do this.
The Honest Money podcast is brought to you by Prescient Investment Management. We consider everything to give you the advantage. It's the future of investing. Prescient Investment Management is an authorized FSP.